In the shadowed underbelly of Southern California, few monsters hid in plain sight quite like William Lester Suff. Born Bill Lee Suff on August 20, 1950, in Torrance, California, he would later adopt the name that became synonymous with terror in Riverside County. To those who knew him casually, Suff was unremarkable. A government warehouse clerk, a seemingly affable family man with a penchant for cooking chili at local events and volunteering in his community. Neighbors described him as friendly, even helpful, the kind of guy who'd wave hello while tending to his van. But beneath that mundane facade lurked a predator of unimaginable brutality, one who earned chilling monikers that still send shivers through true crime circles: the Riverside Prostitute Killer, or the Lake Elsinore Killer. Suff's double life exemplified the most insidious type of serial offender, the one who blends seamlessly into society while harboring dark impulses that erupt in waves of calculated violence. His crimes targeted the vulnerable, exploiting the fringes of society in a spree that spanned years, marked by escalating savagery and a disturbing level of control. What drove this ordinary, seeming man to become one of California's most prolific and sadistic killers? How did he evade detection for so long, all while maintaining the illusion of normalcy? This is the story of a killer whose duality fooled everyone around him, a man whose actions revealed a capacity for cruelty that defies comprehension. But we're just scratching the surface here. The full details, the methods, the motives, the harrowing discoveries that finally brought him to justice, are far more disturbing than any introduction can convey. Stay tuned for the upcoming parts, where we'll dive deep into the timeline, the investigation, and the bone-chilling elements that make this case one of the most R-N-U-R-N in American true crime history. You won't want to miss what comes next. Trust me, the horror is only beginning. The seeds of William Lester Suff's monstrous path were planted long before the bodies began piling up in Riverside County. To truly understand the Riverside Prostitute Killer, we must go back to the early 1970s, when a young Bill Suff, still in his early 20s, revealed the first chilling glimpse of the rage simmering beneath his unassuming exterior. In 1973, Suff and his wife, Terrell Rose Suff, lived in Fort Worth, Texas. Their 2-month-old daughter, DeJohnette, was a fragile infant in a home that would soon become a nightmare. What exactly transpired behind closed doors remains shrouded in denial and deflection, but the autopsy told a horrifying story. The tiny girl had suffered catastrophic injuries. Her liver was ruptured from blunt force trauma, so severe it burst internally. She had 12 broken ribs. A cigarette burn seared nearly to the bone on her heel. Medical examiners concluded she had been brutally beaten to death. Both Suff and Terrell were arrested and charged with murder. In 1974, a Texas jury convicted them. Suff maintained his innocence, claiming the injuries were accidental or unexplained, but the evidence painted a picture of sustained, sadistic abuse. He was sentenced to 70 years in prison, a term that should have kept him locked away for decades. Terrell's conviction was later overturned on appeal due to insufficient evidence, tying her directly to the fatal blows, but Suff stood firm. Remarkably, after serving just 10 years, Suff was paroled in 1984. The decision to release him early would prove catastrophic. Authorities at the time could not have foreseen the escalation to come, but in hindsight, this was a glaring red flag. A man capable of inflicting unimaginable cruelty on the most defenseless, a helpless infant, had been deemed, rehabilitated, and set free. This conviction marked Suff's first documented descent into lethal violence, a precursor to the calculated savagery that would define his later crimes. It revealed early patterns: explosive anger, a lack of remorse, and an ability to manipulate perceptions of normalcy. Even while incarcerated, he remarried and started a new family, only to face allegations years later of abusing another child, allegations that echoed the fatal brutality of 1973. When Suff walked out of that Texas prison in 1984, he relocated to California, landing a stable government job and blending into suburban life. But the monster hadn't been caged, it had merely been biding its time. The horrors that followed, the string of strangled, stabbed, and mutilated women dumped like trash across Riverside County, built directly on this foundation of unchecked violence. If the justice system had kept him behind bars longer, how many lives might have been spared? In the next part, we'll trace Suff's move to California and the ominous beginnings of his killing spree in the mid-1980s. The details grow darker from here. Methods that shocked even seasoned investigators, signatures that taunted police, and a double life that fooled everyone. You won't want to miss it. The true terror is just unfolding. Fresh out of prison in 1984, William Lester Suff wasted little time settling into his new life in Riverside County, California. He secured a steady job as a warehouse clerk for the county government, married again, and projected the image of a reliable everyman, cooking a ward, winning chili for charity cook-offs, and chatting amiably with coworkers. But starting as early as 1986, a shadow fell over the area's marginalized streets, where sex workers and transients scraped by in the shadows of booming suburbs. Between 1986 and 1992, Suff unleashed a reign of terror, claiming at least 12 victims, all women, predominantly prostitutes struggling with addiction or poverty. He was convicted of murdering 12, though authorities long suspected more, with some estimates linking him to as many as 19 or even 22 deaths in the region. His targets were easy prey, vulnerable women he could lure without raising alarms. Suff's modus operandi was chillingly methodical. He cruised high-risk areas in his nondescript van, often posing as a police officer to gain trust, flashing a fake badge or using authoritative demeanor to coax women inside without resistance. Once isolated, the violence erupted. Victims were strangled with brutal force, sometimes using rope, wire, or their own clothing until it sliced into flesh. Many were stabbed repeatedly, sexually assaulted, often post-mortem in acts of necrophilia, and subjected to grotesque mutilation. Breasts were severed, bodies eviscerated, or posed in degrading, provocative positions designed to shock whoever discovered them. The disposal sites amplified the horror. Bodies dumped in remote orange groves, desolate alleys, or near garbage bins and dumpsters in Riverside and Lake Elsinore, as if the women were mere trash. This pattern earned him his infamous nicknames: the Riverside Prostitute Killer and the Lake Elsinore Killer, as panic gripped the community. Prostitutes warned each other of a predator on the prowl, but the killings continued, escalating in frequency and savagery through 1989 to 1991. What made Suff so elusive? His double life. By day, he stocked shelves and volunteered. By night, he hunted. No one suspected the friendly chili cook was capable of such depravity. The crimes bore disturbing signatures. Mutilations that grew more elaborate. Taunts embedded in the scenes that frustrated investigators for years. This spree exposed the dark undercurrents of society, how the vulnerable became invisible victims, their deaths initially dismissed until the body count forced action. But how did it all unravel? In the next part, we'll explore the investigation, the breakthrough arrest, and the mountain of evidence that finally caged this monster. The details of the crime scenes and trial revelations are truly stomach-churning. Stay with us. The most disturbing elements are yet to come. By early 1992, the Riverside County Task Force was closing in, frustrated by years of dead ends in the prostitute killings. The break came not from brilliant detective work, but from a routine traffic stop. On January 9, 1992, police pulled over William Lester Suff for an illegal U-turn in Lake Elsinore. As officers approached his Toyota van, they noticed him driving slowly past a known prostitution area. Suspicious behavior that prompted a closer look. What they found inside the vehicle was a predator's treasure trove of horror, a knife stained with blood that would later match the DNA of his most recent victim, 23-year-old Eleanor Caceres, whose strangled and mutilated body had been discovered just days earlier in a dumpster. There were also items belonging to other victims, clothing, jewelry, personal effects, along with ropes, handcuffs, and other tools of restraint and torture. Fibers, hairs, and other forensic evidence linked back to multiple crime scenes. It was overwhelming. The normal county employee had been carrying the remnants of his kills in plain sight. Suff, then 41, was arrested on the spot. Ironically, he worked as a warehouse clerk for Riverside County itself, stocking supplies for the very government agency hunting him. Coworkers were stunned. This was the guy who brought his famous chili to office potlucks, and seemed like a devoted family man. The revelation shattered his facade and exposed the depth of his double life. Initially charged with Caceres' murder, the case snowballed. By July 1992, a grand jury indicted him on the 13 counts of first-degree murder, as later expanded in accusations, tying him to the spree through ballistics, tire tracks, witness descriptions of his van, and those damning items seized from his vehicle and home. The trial began in 1995, a grueling spectacle in Riverside County Superior Court that laid bare the full extent of Suff's sadism. Prosecutors presented graphic evidence, photos of posed, eviscerated bodies, autopsy reports detailing strangulation and post-mortem abuse, and testimony linking his signatures across victims. After months of testimony, the jury convicted him on the 12 counts of first-degree murder in July 1995. They deadlocked on the 13th. In the penalty phase, deliberating just 10 minutes, they recommended death. On October 26, 1995, Judge Charles Morgan imposed the sentence execution for the Riverside Prostitute Killer. Suff maintained his innocence throughout, claiming he was framed. His appeals dragged on for decades, but the conviction stood. As of today, he remains on death row at San Quentin State Prison, though California's moratorium means no executions are carried out. In the final part, we'll examine the psychological profile, the lasting impact on victims' families, and why this case lingers as one of true crime's most chilling examples of evil hidden in plain sight. The deepest revelations and the unanswered questions are still ahead. Don't miss the conclusion. Decades after his conviction, William Lester Suff's shadow continues to lengthen, proving that even caged monsters can cast new chills over old crimes. In a stunning breakthrough announced in August 2024, advanced DNA testing and a subsequent confession tied the Riverside Prostitute Killer to a long-dormant cold case, the brutal 1986 murder of 19-year-old Kathy Ann Small. Small, a young mother of two from Lake Elsinore, was found stabbed multiple times in the chest on a street in South Pasadena, Los Angeles County, in February 1986. Her killing predated Suff's confirmed Riverside spree by several years, marking it as a potential precursor to the escalating violence that would claim at least 12 lives. The case had gone unsolved for nearly 4 decades, with evidence from her clothing and a sexual assault kit sitting untested until modern forensic techniques were applied around 2020. When investigators re-examined the materials, DNA profiles matched Suff, already on death row. Confronted with the irrefutable genetic evidence during an interview, the then 73-year-old quickly confessed. He admitted to arguing with Small before stabbing her repeatedly and abandoning her body. Authorities described the admission as detailed and matter of fact, offering closure to Small's family while underscoring how Suff's predatory instincts were active far earlier than previously documented. This link pushes Suff's known victim count to at least 13, reinforcing patterns seen in his later crimes targeting vulnerable young women, explosive rage, and callous disposal of bodies. It also highlights the power of persistent cold case units and DNA databases in cracking cases once deemed unsolvable. As of early 2026, Suff, now 75, remains housed on death row at San Quentin Rehabilitation Center in California. Sentenced to death in 1995 for the 12 Riverside murders, his execution, like those of all condemned inmates in the state, has been indefinitely halted due to Governor Gavin Newsom's 2019 moratorium on capital punishment. That executive order, which dismantled the state's execution chamber and withdrew lethal injection protocols, remains in effect, with no executions carried out since 2006. Despite ongoing appeals and occasional legal challenges, Suff continues to serve what is effectively a life sentence without parole. The Kathy Small resolution serves as a grim reminder that serial killers rarely stop abruptly, and that justice, though delayed, can still emerge from the darkness. This case, with its blend of hidden evil, forensic triumph, and systemic questions about punishment, cements Suff's legacy as one of true crime's most duplicitous and enduring nightmares. The case of William Lester Suff stands as a chilling archetype in the annals of American true crime, a monster who embodied extreme brutality while cloaked in the ultimate disguise. The friendly neighbor. By day, he was the affable county clerk dishing out award, winning chili at community events. By night, a sadistic predator who strangled, stabbed, mutilated, and defiled vulnerable women, treating their bodies like garbage. This duality wasn't just deceptive, it was devastatingly effective, allowing him to evade capture for years, despite dumping victims in plain sight. Suff's crimes shocked California in the late 80s and early 90s, ranking among the state's most notorious serial killing sprees alongside the likes of Ramirez or Bianchi. But beyond the gore, the case exposed deep societal fissures. The tragic invisibility of marginalized victims, primarily sex workers battling addiction and poverty, whose deaths were too often dismissed until the body count became undeniable. It highlighted failures in protecting the most vulnerable and sparked conversations about how law enforcement prioritizes cases involving society's fringes. Ultimately, Suff's story is a stark warning about the danger lurking in double lives. Evil doesn't always announce itself with glaring red flags. Sometimes it waves hello over a pot of chili, even behind bars on San Quentin's death row, where his sentence remains unenforced due to California's ongoing moratorium. This predator's legacy endures, a reminder that monsters can hide in the most ordinary places. Thank you for joining me through this dark journey into the Riverside Prostitute Killer's world. If this series chilled you, made you think, or kept you up at night, hit that like button. Share it with fellow true crime enthusiasts. Drop a comment with your thoughts. Who's the most deceptive killer you've studied? And subscribe for more deep dives into the shadows. The next case is already brewing. Stay tuned.